Joyce Meyer had just finished delivering her Sunday sermon at the Life Christian Church in St. Louis. The large auditorium was slowly emptying as congregants filed out, many stopping to shake her hand or share a brief word of gratitude. After decades of ministry, Joyce had developed an intuition for those in need. Something caught her eye, a teenage girl, perhaps 15 or 16, slipping out a side door with her shoulders hunched, visibly wiping tears from her face. "I'll be right back," Joyce told her assistant, who was reviewing the schedule for the upcoming week. Without waiting for a response, Joyce followed her instinct and headed toward the exit. The spring air was crisp as she stepped outside, scanning the parking lot. She spotted the girl walking hurriedly toward the bus stop, her dark hair blowing in the wind, wearing a worn denim jacket that seemed too thin for the cool Missouri morning. Joyce quickened her pace, feeling an unusual urgency. In her decades of ministry, she had learned to recognize divine appointments, and something told her this was one of them. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice carrying across the parking lot. The girl turned briefly, her eyes red and puffy, before walking even faster. Joyce, despite her 60-plus years, maintained her pace, determined to reach her. "Honey, wait," Joyce called again, finally catching up as the girl reached the bus stop. Up close, Joyce could see the girl was trembling slightly, her knuckles white as she clutched a small backpack. "I'm Joyce. I noticed you seemed upset in church. Is everything all right?" The girl looked down, avoiding eye contact, her sneakers scuffing against the concrete. "I'm fine," the girl mumbled, though everything about her posture suggested otherwise. "My bus will be here soon." She glanced nervously down the street, clearly hoping for an escape from this conversation. Joyce noticed a bruise partially visible on the girl's wrist, poorly concealed by her sleeve. Joyce took a gentle breath, praying silently for wisdom. "What's your name?" she asked, keeping her voice soft and non-threatening. There was a long pause before the girl answered. "Melissa," she finally said, her voice barely audible over the sound of passing traffic. "Melissa Carter." She looked up briefly, meeting Joyce's eyes for the first time. In that moment, Joyce saw not just sadness, but fear, the kind that comes from living in constant uncertainty. "Melissa, I don't believe in coincidences," Joyce said, settling onto the bus stop bench and gesturing for the girl to join her. "Would you like to talk? Or maybe just get some lunch?" No pressure, but sometimes it helps to have someone listen. Joyce watched as conflicting emotions crossed Melissa's face. Suspicion, hope, and desperation, all battling for dominance. The bus appeared in the distance, rumbling toward them. Melissa glanced at it, then back at Joyce. It was a pivotal moment. Trust a stranger or continue alone. As the bus drew closer, Melissa made her decision. "I haven't eaten since yesterday," she admitted quietly, remaining standing as the bus pulled up, its doors opening with a hydraulic hiss. After a moment's hesitation, she let the bus depart without her. Joyce took Melissa to a small diner 2 blocks from the church. The place was quiet, with red vinyl booths and the comforting smell of coffee and homemade pie. They sat in a corner booth, away from other patrons. Melissa ordered pancakes, her eyes widening slightly when Joyce insisted she get whatever she wanted. The waitress, recognizing Joyce, gave a respectful nod but maintained their privacy. "I've been living with my aunt and uncle for the past 8 months," Melissa explained, after demolishing half her pancakes in record time. "My mom's in rehab again, 4th time." She said this matter-of-factly, as though reciting something as ordinary as a grocery list. Joyce noticed how Melissa's eyes darted around the diner, constantly assessing, a habit developed from years of needing to be vigilant. Joyce listened intently, offering no platitudes or quick fixes. Her years of counseling had taught her the power of presence, of simply being there while someone unburdens their heart. Melissa's story emerged in fragments: a mother battling addiction, a father who'd left years ago, and now an uncle whose temper turned violent when he drank. The bruise on her wrist was just the most recent evidence. "I came to church because my mom used to take me back when things were better," Melissa said, pushing the remaining food around her plate. "She always said God was looking out for us, but..." She trailed off, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Where was God when everything fell apart? Joyce recognized the familiar crisis of faith, one she had faced herself many times throughout her own difficult journey. "I was going to run away today," Melissa admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I packed some clothes, took the money I've been saving from my weekend job at the grocery store. I don't even know where I was going, just away." She looked up at Joyce, her eyes simultaneously defiant and terrified. "I can't go back there. Not anymore." Joyce felt a familiar stirring in her spirit, the same calling that had led her into ministry decades ago after overcoming her own traumatic past. "Melissa," she said carefully, "running away might seem like the only option, but there are people who can help. Proper help." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "Would you trust me to make a few calls?" Melissa's hands trembled as she wrapped them around her water glass. "They'll just send me back, or put me in foster care. I've heard stories." Her voice cracked slightly, revealing the depth of her fear. Joyce understood the system that was supposed to protect children often failed them in profound ways. "I have connections with a women's shelter that helps in situations exactly like yours," Joyce explained. "They have legal advocates who can ensure you're safe while we figure out next steps. No one is sending you back to an unsafe home." Joyce watched as a tiny flicker of hope appeared in Melissa's eyes, fragile but present. After a long moment, Melissa nodded. "Okay," she whispered, the single word carrying the weight of enormous trust. Joyce made the call, speaking quietly but firmly to someone she clearly knew well. As she talked, Melissa stared out the window at people passing by, ordinary people living ordinary lives, something she had never experienced but desperately wanted. The women's shelter was nothing like Melissa had imagined. Instead of an institutional dormitory, it was a large, well-maintained Victorian house in a quiet neighborhood. Inside, the walls were painted in warm colors, with comfortable furniture and artwork created by former residents. Joyce accompanied Melissa through the intake process, her presence providing a bridge of trust between the frightened girl and the shelter staff. "This is Sarah," Joyce introduced a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "She's the director here, and she's helped hundreds of young women in situations like yours." Sarah explained how the shelter worked, the security measures, the support services, the educational opportunities. Most importantly, she explained how they would handle the legal aspects of Melissa's situation, ensuring she wouldn't have to return to her uncle's home. "We'll need to file a report," Sarah explained gently, "about the abuse. I know that's scary, but we'll be with you every step." Melissa's face paled, but she nodded, her jaw set with determination that surprised even herself. Joyce watched this interaction with a sense of déjà vu. How many times had she sat with women making these same difficult decisions, taking their first steps toward freedom? That evening, after Melissa was settled in a small but private room, Joyce sat with her as she called her mother in rehab. The conversation was difficult, filled with tears and painful truths. Joyce provided quiet support, occasionally offering guidance when Melissa struggled to find words. By the end, there was a tentative plan. Her mother would continue treatment, and they would work toward reunification, but only when it was truly safe and stable. "You're not alone anymore," Joyce told Melissa as they finished the call. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but this is the beginning of a new chapter." Melissa looked skeptical, but nodded. Years of disappointment had taught her to be cautious with hope, but something about Joyce's certainty was contagious. Before leaving, Joyce did something that took Melissa by surprise. She asked if she could pray with her. "You don't have to," Joyce assured her, "but if you're willing, I'd like to." Melissa hesitated, then nodded. As Joyce prayed, her words weren't filled with religious jargon or promises of instant transformation. Instead, she simply asked for protection, wisdom, and healing practical requests that resonated with Melissa's immediate needs. Joyce left her personal number with Melissa. "Day or night," she said, "if you need anything or just want to talk." As Joyce prepared to leave, Melissa suddenly stepped forward and hugged her, a quick, awkward embrace that spoke volumes. Joyce returned the hug, careful not to hold too tight, understanding the courage it took for this wounded young woman to initiate physical contact. Driving home that evening, Joyce couldn't get Melissa out of her mind. She called her husband Dave, explaining that she'd be late for dinner and why. As she spoke, a plan began forming, not just for temporary intervention, but for long-term support. Joyce had resources, connections, and a platform. She had helped countless people through her ministry, but this felt different, more personal, more urgent. Over the next few weeks, Joyce visited Melissa regularly. She brought books, comfortable clothes, and occasionally home-cooked meals prepared by Dave, who had become invested in Melissa's story as well. The shelter provided excellent care, but Joyce understood the importance of consistent personal connection, of showing Melissa that she wasn't just a case to be managed, but a person worthy of individual attention. During one visit, Joyce arrived to find Melissa in the shelter's small library, helping a younger girl with homework. "She reminded me of my little sister," Melissa explained afterward, a hint of embarrassment in her voice. "I used to help her with math before." She trailed off, the pain of separation still raw. Joyce recognized this moment for what it was, Melissa beginning to see herself as someone with value to offer, not just needs to be met. Meanwhile, Joyce was working behind the scenes. She connected with legal advocates who specialized in cases like Melissa's, ensuring she had the best representation possible. She spoke with educational consultants about options for Melissa to complete her high school education despite the disruption. Most importantly, she began researching long-term housing solutions that would provide stability beyond the temporary shelter. "I've been thinking," Joyce said during one of their conversations. "My ministry has a scholarship program for young people who've overcome difficult circumstances. When you're ready, I'd like to recommend you for it." Melissa looked stunned, then suspicious. "Why would you do that? You barely know me," she challenged, her self-protective instincts flaring up. Joyce considered her answer carefully. "Because everyone deserves a chance to build a life that isn't defined by their worst experiences," she finally said. "And because I see something in you, strength, resilience, and a heart that still cares despite everything that's happened to you." Melissa looked away, uncomfortable with the praise, but clearly affected by it. The legal process moved forward. Melissa testified about the abuse, supported by Joyce and the shelter's advocates. Her uncle faced charges, and her aunt, finally free from his control as well, began her own healing journey. Melissa's mother continued making progress in rehab, calling regularly and working with counselors to address the patterns that had led to her addiction. One afternoon, Joyce invited Melissa to visit her ministry offices. "I want to show you something," she explained as they walked through the building. She led Melissa to a wall covered with letters and photos testimonials from people whose lives had been changed through Joyce's work. "Every person here has a story not so different from yours," Joyce explained. "They all faced moments where they had to choose between giving up or fighting for a better future." Melissa studied the wall silently, taking in the faces and stories. "Do you think I could ever be like them?" she asked quietly, her voice uncertain but not entirely hopeless. "Not just okay, but actually good? Actually helping other people?" The question revealed the stirring of something new, not just a desire to escape pain, but to create meaning from it. "I don't just think it, I know it," Joyce answered with conviction. "In fact, I believe your experiences, difficult as they've been, have given you insights and compassion that many people never develop. The question is whether you're willing to see your past not just as something that happened to you, but as preparation for what you might do for others." Melissa didn't respond immediately, but Joyce could see her considering these words with serious attention. 6 months later, Joyce stood backstage at her annual women's conference. The auditorium was filled with thousands of attendees from across the country. She checked her watch, feeling an unusual flutter of nerves, not for her own upcoming presentation, but for what would happen before it. Melissa walked onto the stage, wearing a simple but professional outfit that Joyce had helped her select. Her hair was pulled back, revealing a face that looked both older and younger than when they'd first met. The hardness of constant vigilance had softened, but there was a new maturity in her eyes. The audience quieted as she approached the microphone. "My name is Melissa Carter," she began, her voice shaking slightly before steadying. "6 months ago, I was sitting in the back row of a church, planning to run away with nothing but a backpack and no destination. I was certain that no one would notice or care." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I was wrong. Someone did notice. Someone did care." As Melissa shared her story, the abuse, the intervention, the healing process, Joyce watched the audience. There were tears, nods of recognition, and the unmistakable stillness that comes when people are truly listening. Melissa spoke with remarkable poise, neither minimizing her struggles nor defining herself solely by them. "I'm not standing here today because my problems are all solved," Melissa continued. "My mom is still in recovery. I'm still working through trauma with my therapist. I still have nightmares sometimes." She looked directly at the audience. "I'm standing here because I learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means finding purpose in it." Melissa explained how she was now volunteering at the shelter, mentoring younger girls. She talked about returning to school, about her plans to study social work. "The scholarship program that Joyce Meyer Ministries provides isn't just paying for my education," she said. "It's investing in every person I'll be able to help in the future." As Melissa concluded her speech, she looked toward the side of the stage where Joyce waited. "Someone once told me that God doesn't waste pain, that our worst experiences can become the source of our greatest contribution to others. I didn't believe it then. I'm starting to believe it now." The audience rose in a standing ovation as Joyce joined Melissa on stage, embracing her with genuine pride. Later that evening, after the conference had ended, Joyce and Melissa sat in the now empty auditorium. "How do you feel?" Joyce asked. Melissa considered the question, looking out at the rows of vacant seats. "Scared," she admitted, "but not like before. It's more like scared because I'm actually hoping for things now. That's newer for me than the speaking part." Joyce nodded, understanding completely. Hope was indeed the riskiest emotion. It opened the door to potential disappointment in a way that cynicism never did. "I have something for you," Joyce said, handing Melissa a small box. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with an inscription. "Your story is still being written." Melissa slipped it onto her wrist, covering the faded bruise that served as a reminder of where she'd been. As they walked out together, Melissa stopped suddenly. "That day at the bus stop," she said, "what made you follow me? You must see hundreds of people at your events. Why me?" Joyce considered the question carefully, knowing the importance of honesty. "I've asked myself that same question," she admitted. "All I can tell you is that sometimes, in rare moments, we're given a chance to see beyond the surface, to recognize someone else's pain because we felt something similar. I followed you because 30 years ago, I was you." She smiled gently. "And someone followed me." Outside, the evening air was warm with early summer. As they parted ways, Joyce to her waiting car, Melissa to the apartment she now shared with two other young women from the program, both understood that their connection had transcended the typical boundaries of ministry. What had begun as a chance encounter had become a testament to the power of noticing, of following divine nudges, and of the remarkable transformation that can occur when someone chooses to walk alongside another person through their darkest moments. In that simple act of following a crying girl after church, both lives had indeed been changed forever. Sometimes the most profound moments in life come from the simplest acts of attention. Joyce Meyer could have easily continued with her busy schedule that day, focused on the thousands she had just addressed. Instead, she noticed one tearful girl slipping away, and in that moment of divine awareness, two lives were forever altered. This story reminds us that healing often begins with being truly seen. In a world where we're constantly rushing past each other, the courage to stop, to follow that inner prompting, and to extend a hand to someone in pain may be the most powerful ministry of all. We all have Melissas in our lives, people at crossroads of desperation who need someone to notice their silent suffering. And perhaps, at different moments, we are all Melissa too, needing someone to recognize our pain when we cannot speak it aloud. The true miracle in this story isn't just what Joyce did for Melissa, but what they ultimately did for each other, creating a circle of compassion that continues to expand, touching countless lives beyond their own. This is how light spreads in a darkened world, one person at a time, one act of courage at a time, one moment of divine connection at a time. Has someone ever noticed your pain when no one else did? Or have you been the one to reach out when others walked by? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel. We share these real-life testimonies of hope and transformation every week, believing that authentic stories have the power to change lives. Thank you for taking the time to watch and reflect with us today. Your presence here matters more than you know.